Need to wait for a green light here and then we can go. Yep, there it is, the Edina green light. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Edina City Council meeting. It's the first one of 2025. It is January 7th, 2025, 7:01 p.m. And as Director Benarott said, we're doing these meetings in a hybrid sort of fashion. So we have folks with us live this evening in the audience, and we also have folks listening in on a remote basis in our virtual world in a variety of different ways. And they'll have a couple different, I guess I have one opportunity tonight to call in, that's during community comment, if they have something they want to share with the council. Having provided that information, I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask our clerk, Sharon Allison, to call the roll.
Councilmember Agnew. Here. Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
Here.
Councilmember Lisser. Here. Mayor Hubbard.
Here. Next we have, following the roll call, the administration of oath of office. And we had an election this fall, as all of you are aware, that covered a variety of levels of government, from the federal all the way down to local. And three of us on the council were reelected by the residents of our community. And the clerk, Sharon Allison, now has to administer the oath of office to me and to Councilmember Jackson and Councilmember Pierce. And I think you wanted us to come down from the dais one at a time. Is that it?
Yes.
All right.
Jennifer, where do you want us to stand? Anywhere? Okay. So here's a microphone for
Okay.
you. And maybe back up just a bit. There we go. Ready? Okay. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, James Hovland,
I, James Hovland,
do solemnly swear under oath
do solemnly swear under oath
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Minnesota,
and of the state of Minnesota,
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of council member
of the office of council member
in the city of Edina,
in the city of Edina
of the county of Hennepin,
and the county of Hennepin
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my abilities.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
And I will have you Thank you very much. All right, Councilmember Jackson. And for Councilmember Jackson and Councilmember Pierce, we will be doing two oaths. So one for the council and then one for the HRA.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand and repeat out. There you go. I, Carolyn Jackson,
I, Carolyn Jackson,
do solemnly swear under oath
do solemnly swear under oath
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Minnesota,
and of the state of Minnesota,
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of council member
of the office of council member
in the city of Edina,
in the city of Edina,
of the county of Hennepin,
of the county of Hennepin,
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
And now we'll go on to the HRA oath.
Okay.
I, Carolyn Jackson,
I, Carolyn Jackson,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Minnesota,
and of the state of Minnesota,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Commissioner
of the office of Commissioner
of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority of Edina, Minnesota,
of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority of Edina, Minnesota,
according to the law
according to the law
and to the best of my judgment and ability.
and to the best of my judgment and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I do further swear that I am
I do further swear that I am
and was at the time of my appointment
and was at the time of my appointment
a resident of the city of Edina, Minnesota.
a resident of the city of Edina, Minnesota.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm going to find out.
I'll have you Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, James Pierce,
I, James Pierce,
do solemnly swear under oath
do solemnly swear under oath
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Minnesota,
and of the state of Minnesota,
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of council member
of the office of council member
in the city of Edina,
in the city of Edina,
of the county of Hennepin,
of the county of Hennepin,
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and abilities.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Now we'll do the HRA. I, James Pierce,
I, James Pierce,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Minnesota,
and the state of Minnesota,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Commissioner
of the office of Commissioner
of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority
of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority
of Edina, Minnesota,
of Edina, Minnesota,
according to the law
according to the law
and to the best of my judgment and ability.
and to the best of my judgment and
So
abilities.
help me God.
So help me God.
I do further swear that I am
I do further swear that I am
and was at the time of my appointment
and was at the time of my appointment
a resident of the city of Edina, Minnesota.
a resident of the city of Edina in Minnesota.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mayor Hubbard, we'll have you come down again to the HRA.
I want to be on the HRE. I guess I have to come back down and do this one too.
Sorry about that. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, James Hovland,
I, James Hovland,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Minnesota,
and of the state of Minnesota,
and will faithfully discharge the duties
and will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Commissioner
of the office of Commissioner
of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority of Edina, Minnesota,
of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority of Edina, Minnesota,
according to the law
according to the law
and to the best of my judgment and ability.
and to the best of my judgment and abilities.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I do further swear that I am
I do further swear that I am
and was at the time of my appointment
and was at the time of my appointment
a resident of the city of Edina, Minnesota.
a resident of the city of Edina, Minnesota.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again. All right, next is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Folks, we have a meeting agenda in front of us that's been published to the public. Is there anyone on the council or from a staff standpoint that wishes to modify the meeting agenda in any form or fashion? Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda as published?
So moved.
Second.
Member Jackson moves. Member Pierce seconds the adoption of the meeting agenda as published. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting the meeting agenda as published, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Meeting agenda is adopted. And now we are at community comment. And if we have fellow residents in the audience this evening that would like to speak to the council about a matter of concern to them that's not on the agenda or scheduled for a future public hearing, you're welcome to come forward, and you'll have 3 minutes. As Director Benarott said, you'll get a yellow warning light when you got 30 seconds left, and then you can wrap up your comments. And yes, please.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Ralph Sickert. I live at 4311 Cornelia Circle. Beginning at the 4-hour, 42-minute mark of the December 17th meeting, Member Jackson expressed the opinion that community comment was only meant for, and I quote, the council, not the public, unquote. And also that community comment should be, and I quote, off camera, unquote. Member Jackson's concern is that community comment has become too political, and the city should not pay to fund the broadcast of what, in her opinion, was a resident's political message. Member Jackson's position was in turn supported by Mayor Hovland. So the very part of the meeting that allows me and other residents to speak and be heard here tonight, community comment, is to be taken off camera and put behind closed doors. As I was the only person to speak during the community comment that evening, there is little to doubt as to what position was thought to be unworthy of broadcast or too political. And just in case the rest of the council does not recall, what I spoke about on December 17th was Edina's unwillingness to return $9 million of excess TIF funds to Edina schools and return yet another $9 million to Hennepin County, while still keeping $9 million for Edina's general fund, as is the practice with 70% of the state's TIF district. As I listened to the video from December, none of what I said was contrary to the guidelines posted on the city website or the verbal instructions to the public at the beginning of each and every council meeting. In Member Jackson's opinion, community comment is meant to reflect a resident's lived experience, to be expressed to the council and not the public. So for the record and the benefit of the entire council, my lived experience is that I'm embarrassed by the council's unwillingness to return excess TIF funds to the schools in the county. I'm embarrassed neither you, Member Jackson, or you, Mayor, reached out to me rather than the two of you immediately leaping to a solution. I'm embarrassed to be part of a community whose leaders would even think to so constrain public discourse by taking community comment off camera behind closed doors. Finally, as to my December 17th comment, is the next mayor listening? Clearly not close enough, because at that very point, the next mayor, as we've just saw, had already been chosen and was sworn in here moments ago. 2025 represents a chance to lead Edina in a more fiscally sound direction. The question is, will this new council have the will to do so?
Thank you, Mr. Zickert. Anyone else? All right, do we have anybody online that wants to speak to the council?
I don't have anyone on the line yet tonight, sir.
Okay. Mr. Zickert, before you leave, we may take up this topic later on. I don't know if you want to stick around or not, but...
As you shared with me before, it's not a colloquy.
All right, anybody online? Okay. All right. Very good. Manager Neal, our usual process is that you speak to the issues that might have been raised during community comment at the prior meeting. Is there anything that you need to report out on?
Mr. Mayor and members of council, there is not. I mean, we had one speaker. It was Mr. Zickert, and much like he did this evening, he made some statements, which is his right to do under our process. He didn't pose any questions to us, and that's what we try to restrict our interaction on at the following meeting, is answering questions that are posed and not using it as a time to rebut political speech.
Okay, very good. That prompt any questions or comments from council members? Very good. Let's move on to the next portion of the agenda, which is the consent agenda. We have several items on the consent agenda this evening, and I think Member Risser wanted to remove 6.12. Is there anyone on the council, anyone else on the council that wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda? Is there a motion to adopt all of the items on the consent agenda with the exception of item 6.12?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Member Jackson moves, Member Pierce seconds the adoption of the items on the consent agenda with the exception of item 6.12. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting the items on the consent agenda except 6.12 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Now let's turn to 6.12, which is the proposal to approve the redevelopment agreement for 7200 France Avenue Apartments and the First Amendment to the 7200-7250 redevelopment agreement. And I'll turn to Member Risser.
Thank you. My concern is at the HRA meeting, we voted on this, and I did vote against this. The other concerns that I have is that the Spark money is said to be used for getting the affordable housing to actually be built. However, this project, the affordable housing commitment was made in the PUD. It was also made in the TIF agreement. And if you look at the TIF agreement, there are a couple scenarios for the 7200 site, a hotel or affordable or market rate apartments. And there is language in that TIF agreement for addressing if it was to be a market rate apartment complex. So there's that. And now we're going to be adding $4.8 million in Spark funds on top of that. And actually, this does connect to the points that the Edina resident just made, Mr. Zickert. If that $4.8 million was to be returned to the county, and at this point, if I could have images of slides that I have requested, that would be very helpful. We would have about $1.6 million in the general fund. And those funds could be used for public purpose. So I really have a concern about dedicating those funds. The other thing is, since the meeting at the HRA, and actually, let's stay right here. We don't. This is one that I want. This is in the redevelopment and Spark agreement document that was posted online for the public. And if you look at item E, you see that there is specific language that there's going to be at least 3 studio units, and there is size, no smaller than 500 square feet. 5 one-bedroom units, and those will be no smaller than 700 square feet. 4 two-bedroom units, 1,080 square feet. 1 three-bedroom unit, and that's 1,180 square feet. There would have to be 2 additional units to bring it up to 15, but there would be a minimum of 21 people who would be housed. If you go and you look at the chart that is down below, you can see that the makeup of the units that would be provided changes significantly. Instead of having 4 two-bedrooms, we only have 2 two-bedrooms. We do not have a 3-bedroom. We have something that is known as a bedroom plus den. But you'll note in the language above, there is no size for the bedroom plus den. And so that is a problem. We don't see what kind of space we're actually going to get. And I did present this information to staff and received feedback that what would happen is all of the information that shows size would be eliminated, and we would be committing to the 1-bedrooms, the 1-bedroom plus den, and the studio. So we would be getting much smaller units. And my concern is that the public has seen this document. This is the agreement that is out there, and this has been out there for several weeks. And we can't just simply change things the day that we are going to vote. I think in terms of transparency and public trust, that is not okay. The other thing that concerns me is the final paragraph, and I don't know if we could go back up to that other page, but the final paragraph says, or final sentence, any change in the foregoing distribution and below identification of affordable units shall require the prior written approval of the executive director of the authority and city manager of the city, which such consent will not be unreasonably conditioned, delayed, or withheld. And that I would like information about exactly what that means, because it seems to be that could be a further reduction in the number of affordable units, or perhaps, limitation so that we don't even have two-bedroom units. So if I could get some information on that, but also I want that concern to be out there. And I don't know if Mr. Lindgren could answer that. What exactly does it mean when we say that the executive director and city manager can basically change things, I think?
Mayor, council members, for the record, Jay Lindgren with the Dorsey & Whitney Law Firm, Special Counsel of the City for Economic Development. Two things. One is, I respectfully state that you found a slight error in a document, but I think it's a non-substantive error, and I want to explain why. Elsewhere, what you're quoting from is an exhibit to the redevelopment agreement. It is a declaration that makes the affordability permanent, and it is to be recorded after the completion of the project. In the body of the redevelopment agreement, it's actually section 4.4, the specific 3-studio, 5 one-bedroom, 5 one-bedroom plus 10, 2 two-bedroom that was approved by the HRA are specified. And so the declaration that would be recorded in the future if the project is built will have to meet those requirements that I just stated. So that's the first.
Could you tell me, I'm looking at the document right now, okay, because what ends up remaining is a chart with units that are far lower than that text. You were telling me that we are going to get the bigger units. Is that correct?
I think the chart actually matches up to the distribution I just talked about. What I'm saying is that this is an exhibit that's a form document. It's not a final document. It's the type of document that is required to be recorded after the project is built. Once two things happen, the city delivers a certificate of occupancy, but also then the HRA has a process called the certificate of completion, which means that the project that was built is consistent with all the requirements in the redevelopment agreement, or the TIF agreement, if you will. That's the document that grants the Spark loan. And that document requires that this chart be filled out and show that there are, just as it says in the chart, 3 studios and 5 one-bedroom and 9, or in, whatever it is, 5 one-bedroom plus 10 and 2 two-bedroom. That's what has to be built. The paragraph above, in the course of finalizing the document, all the parties to it missed one sentence, and for that I certainly apologize as a part of the team producing it, but it doesn't change the substance of what the document requires now. It requires that that chart be filled out and show that there are the 3, 5, 5, and 2.
I understand what you're saying. As an elected official, my concern is confusion with the public and people believing that we were going to get more for that Spark money. We're talking almost $5 million in Spark funding. And my understanding is there is no information that would affirm the size of these units in the document or the agreement at all. Is that true?
That is correct, and in the body of the document, there is not a minimum size requirement. That was what was negotiated with the developer at the time and, was presented to the HRA. So it's misspoken in this Form Future document, but it is correct in the body of the document. So again, I won't speak to the policy question of whether or not you agree with that, but I will say that legally, this document is clear and can be executed if the council chooses to approve it in the same manner that the HRA did. I don't think it would take further modification. I won't go to the question about whether or not that confuses the public. That's up to you to decide, but I think this is a properly documented, a properly prepared document that has a slight error in it that is not substantive.
Okay, I think we may need to agree to disagree on whether it's substantive or not. But
I'm just giving you my legal opinion, not my political opinion.
1 bedroom plus den could be a 400 square foot unit. We could be talking we have no idea how much square footage we are going to get for that 5 million.
You are
Okay.
correct.
All right. Thank you so much. And there were another series of slides that I wanted to have shown.
See if I can find it.
Okay. Yep, thank you. And I will keep this brief, but when we message about TIF financing, and yes, Spark funds technically, we are talking about unspent TIF, okay? But this is coming from the property taxes, and when you look at what the Office of the State Auditor presents, they note that there is an impact on other jurisdictions, the county, the city, the school district, special districts. We do not have that conversation when we talk about TIF. If we could advance to the next slide. And then here, maximizing benefits. The inclination may be to delay decertification, hold surplus funds, maximize pooling and administrative expenditures, but consider tax-based benefits are maximized by early decertification. Return to increment distribution back to the municipality is free of TIF restrictions. And that is critical to understand, especially when we look at what we had to cut from our budget. And so if we could, it does have an impact on the city of Edina. If we could move to the next slide. This is what we ended up deciding to reduce the budget. This is how we brought things down from that 13.14 property tax hike that we would have had to make. And that includes deferring the Lewis Park project, that warming house that is in such horrible shape, not doing that, putting that on the back burner, okay? So that had to go. We also delayed hiring new paramedic firefighters, and we could do a group of 3 instead of a group of 6, but there are things that we could do with the funds. It would be $1.6 million. All right, and so I do have a lot of concerns about dedicating that Spark money to this project that has already seen so much in terms of public benefit, being able to go to 6 stories instead of 4 in a transition zone, having a building that is 1.5 times the building that it was compared to. So that's a lot of financial benefit right there. And then again, it's already in a TIF district. So for these reasons, I wanted to pull this item. I can't remember if I have a final slide. Yes, here is how we message, and this has been constant. Spark funds are use it or lose it source. Use it or it'll go away. And the language is it's better to keep 100% of this money for Edina only. And I think, I have to respectfully disagree with that. And one thing I was thinking about, especially since this is the first meeting of 2025, and I too took that oath of office to support the Constitution of the state of Minnesota to the best of my ability. And I think it is really important to think about what the messaging is from state offices, including, the Office of the State Auditor. Okay, so that I've said a lot, and that is pretty much it. But this is why I wanted to pull that item. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Risser. We've got I think a full audience here in the chambers tonight. I think it might be helpful at this point in time for somebody to come forward from staff and explain how we got to where we are and what is Spark, why was it created by the legislature, when was it created, and why we decided to, as an HRA, the council sitting as an HRA decided to use Spark funds versus TIF funds to provide for the affordable housing aspect of this particular apartment building on 7200 France. Please introduce yourself for the folks in the audience.
I think Manager Neuendorf and I will tag team this. I'm Stephanie Hawkinson. I'm the Affordable Housing Development Manager for Edina. One reason we use Spark funds is the TIF notes that were pledged for the development of in this area, within this TIF district, were for the development of 7250 France, and the TIF funds were not being allocated towards the development of 7200 France. And so when 7200 France came forward as the proposed apartment with the affordable units, there was no city financing for the development of the project, and it did have a development gap that was discussed at the HRA meeting. And the development gap was at $4.8 million. Without the gap, the project would not move forward. And so we provided some scenarios of what would happen, if it was elected to not support the project with its financing. This site, this area, both 7250 and 7200, have been decreasing in value over time. Their portion of what they contribute to the overall tax base has been shrinking. And we're trying to, and it's a vacant parcels, and we're trying to get it alivened again to be contributing to the city tax base, to the life and energy of France Avenue, and to the residents of Edina. So with the proposed development of both parcels, there would be a 764% growth in the taxable value of these parcels with the developments. And so we felt that with that type of growth, there needed to be some upfront money to make it so this growth would be experienced. So we provided 3 scenarios. One, not supporting 7200 with Spark, and having 7250 proceed with the 7200 remaining vacant. One with supporting the apartment building. And then the third was, okay, if the apartment building is not supported, someday, conceivably, a developer will come and want to develop that site. We don't know what, we don't know when, but someday. And at that point, when that would happen, since there's a sunset on the Spark funds, those funds would not be available to support this future development. So we laid out the different hypotheticals and what it would mean. And if they're currently with the TIF district and the notes, if 7200 were not supported, the site would remain a parking pad to support 7250. And there are 2 notes, one for the development of 7250, and the other was the TIF that would increment that came from the development of 7200 that would support 7250. So there are 2 notes. Well, without 7200, only 1 note would be acted upon, and the TIF district would last 26 years in order to pay off that 1 note. And the TIF district could be decertified in 2051. The other scenario is using Spark funds to support 7200. Then both the parking would be enclosed and the increment collected from the development of 7250 would support or 7200 would support 7250. And conceivably, the TIF note could be decertified, the TIF district decertified 10 years earlier than if 7200 is not supported and does not move forward. And then the third would be fairly similar to the first scenario. There could be conceivably a project developed there, and at that time, the TIF district would already be in action there, so the increment collected from this future unknown development would be smaller. That could support 7250, and so the TIF district would probably also last the full 26 years. So then there's this breakdown of what it would mean, and with 7200 supported, we are also saying that part of this amendment was reducing the amount of increment that would support 7250 from 90% to 80%. So, and this is slightly different than what was presented at HRA. So if in scenarios 1 and 3, 1 being don't support a project, and 3 is someday in the future something will happen, about 1.6, as Councilmember Risser said, could be of unused Spark. The whole pot would go back to the county, be redistributed. 1.6 would be our third. And there would be no, in those years between that 10-year where the district could be decertified early, there would be no additional funds that would come to the city. We'd get that 1.6, and then that would be it, because all the increment would go towards supporting 7,200. With the support of the project at 7,200, in that 10-year period, the excess increment that could be collected is almost $4 million. It's $3.7 million that would come back to the city compared to the 1.6 if we return the Spark. So there would be more money that would be coming in the future to this site with the use of Spark. So then there's some other slides, if I may. About other TIF districts and the investment that has gone in and how they have the TIF investments, how in the long run have proven to bring in a lot more tax revenue to the city. So I don't know if you'd like to go over these.
Before you finish up your remarks, I think at the very beginning of your comments, if I were a person sitting in the audience, I would have thought that we were helping the developer with a funding gap because they needed the help, but we don't do that in Edina. We only provide Spark funds or TIF money if there's a public benefit. I think we ought to make that clear.
Yes.
We don't pay developers to develop in Edina.
Mayor, that is correct. The public benefit to this is, well, there are a few. A major conversion from this vacant lot, re-enlivening and bringing it to up on the tax base, and the 15 units of affordable housing that will be affordable in perpetuity. So those are some of the real benefits. And when we have a comprehensive plan, sometimes we do require the assistance of developers to help us realize some of our vision for future development. But this one has those added benefits that are being supported through the Spark.
Right. Now, Manager Newendorf, before you get to your slides, I think people are wondering out there, I would be, well, what's that acronym mean? What is Spark? What is it? Why did we have this money available that we could potentially use to provide some public benefit on this project, including affordable housing in perpetuity?
Sure. Bill Newendorf, I'm the city's economic development manager. Back in 2021, Edina created that SPARK program. And SPARK is an acronym. It stands for Special Projects and Redevelopment Concepts. I forgot the C. But it was a program whereby we had the city of Edina, as well as all cities in Minnesota, had a one-time opportunity based on legislation that came from the state, whereby if cities had some unallocated TIF monies that were available, they could be used for a limited period of time to make substantial investments in a community, private investments, new buildings or renovations of buildings, as long as they delivered that, as long as they created jobs and built something. When Edina created our program, we added one other twist, that they should build something, create jobs, and deliver a public benefit. That's something that Edina has done for decades. Whenever we get involved with financing private development, we want to make sure that the city's investment doesn't just go to benefit a developer's bottom line. Of course, we want to see the project work, but we want to make sure that those dollars are put in the ground to benefit the community. And that's exactly what we're doing here and what staff is recommending in this instance. About 2 years ago, the city started the conversation about creating a TIF district on this site. If you recall, it had been vacant for many years. During the pandemic years of 2020 and 2021, the buildings were vacant. In fact, one had been condemned, being unsafe to be occupied for several years. But they were the target of vandalism. They were just blighted eyesores. This site the project that's in front of us tonight, it's the 8th proposal. We've debated what to do with this site for many years. So finally, the city council rejected some proposals, too big or not the right thing. Some other ones, the developers started to put the numbers together. They just couldn't make it work. This developer finally appears to have a way to make it work. But with the increase of costs, with the city's request and demands, frankly, that if we get involved with financing, they can't just meet the bare minimum. They need to deliver that public benefit. That actually increases their gap. But we find a way to negotiate what we believe is a outcome that makes the project possible and delivers not just a temporary benefit to the community, but a permanent benefit. So that's why we on staff support the use of Spark on this program. We think it achieves everything that we can hope that it will. And my colleague, Ms. Hawkinson, went through a lot of the detail as far as how the numbers work and the benefits and whatnot. As you recall, as a HRA, you've heard the details on several occasions. As typical, we worked with our associates at Ehlers and Associations to go through the budgets, to go through the numbers, to confirm that there is a true gap, that without the use of the city's funds in this case, the project will not go forward. So you've heard that as a HRA. I don't know if that's come out as a city council, but I just wanted to remind folks of that. So that's a little bit more about Spark and why we recommend it and use it, and recommend using it in this particular case.
Other questions from council members at this point in time? Did you have a couple of slides you wanted to show us, or?
I think you've heard enough.
So here's another way I think about it as we went through this process at the HRA, because the question's a good one that Member Risser raises. What I deduce staff is recommending is that we make 100% investment in the increased value of this property versus turning the money back to the county and getting a third of it back and not thinking the county is going to give us their money to use in Edina. Because under the law, we could use it here for a strictly Edina purpose. And then as far as the schools are concerned, I was at that presentation by the state auditor, and his slides are wrong. I mean, he admitted that the school district is not affected by the use of TIF because they use a different funding formula for students. It's a per capita funding out of the legislature. So I don't know if you want to explain that, because nobody wants to see kids get hurt and the school district be injured financially because of decisions that we're making. So sure. That should be explained too.
Yeah, happy to address that. So there were some slides, and one of them had language about how TIF impacts every potential taxing district. It does have an impact. In some cases, it's a positive impact. So we're in the midst of compiling what we call our HRA year in review document. We've been going through the numbers to address and put shed some light on this and use some real examples. But when TIF is used, it's been around as a law since the early 1970s, and it gets tweaked pretty much every single year, specifically to address and protect the school districts. And so while a TIF district is created, a portion of that tax base is temporarily captured, is the terminology in the law. There's other tweaks in the formula to make sure that the school district is not negatively impacted. And every time we create a TIF district, part of that TIF report that we run has pages of analysis and tables of any potential impact to the schools and the county in particular, and the city, school, city, and county. So we do look at that. We work with Ehlers again to run the numbers and look at those projections. But just one example, and this is a great example. They're not always this rosy, but it's the one that just comes to mind. When the city created a TIF district at 50th and France for the Nolan Mains project, we took the old tax-exempt property, the obsolete buildings, rebuilt something that a lot of people really enjoy. For over 40 years, the city and the school and the county received $0 from that site. It was tax exempt. With that project finished, even when it's in a TIF district, the benefit to the schools went from $0 every year to currently $160,000 to benefit the schools. And it's in a TIF district. So when that TIF district expires, when we've paid off the debts and obligations in that district, that number will skyrocket and leap. But right now, the reason that you use TIF is to pay for those other things that make that investment possible. So that's a really good example. We'll have some other ones. That's just the number that came to mind to me at the moment.
Okay. So another question I think would come to people's mind is, well, how often do we use it, and what percent of the tax base does TIF represent, TIF-related projects?
Yeah, great question. So Edina uses TIF pretty sparingly. That being said, in the last couple of years, we've talked about TIF quite a bit. When the city looks at some of these larger sites that are complex and complicated and multi-phase, TIF is usually part of the formula to get those projects going. So currently we have 11 TIF districts. By the end of this year, we'll have a 12th with that new district coming in at the Macy's Furniture site. So we'll have 12 districts. Even with that, about 1% of our tax base is in that TIF district, is in all of those TIF districts. That number changes every single year. The last couple of years, it's been 1.6, 1.2, 1.1, but we typically hover in that area. By comparison, a lot of our neighbors and peer cities, they use TIF about 8%, 6%, 12% is not unusual. So Edina uses it on a much more sparing basis than our peers.
Okay. That prompt any other questions from folks? Member Risser, you had something.
I want to apologize to Mr. Lindgren because I did not give you time to answer the question I had about change being future changes that could happen with written approval from the executive director of the authority and the city manager. And my understanding is that's one person. The executive director is the city manager.
Mayor, Councilmember Risser, yes. So the single person is the city manager and the executive director. The intent of that language isn't to be able to make a wholesale change, but if something changed during the construction period that was reasonable, that, you know, and without going through all the units, but that it created one more 2-bedroom or one more 3-bedroom, and it came out to essentially the same, that there could be a reasonable interpretation. Is that exactly what it says? No, but that is the reason that we included it, is because this is a forward-looking document, and when a construction project happens over a couple of years, if there's something that needs to change, we wanted to have a vehicle so that it could be addressed at the time. I'm more than happy to say on the public record, it's not intended to say, okay, you can get rid of the affordable units or you can change them. But if there was something to be dealt with, we ask you to give that authority to the city manager / executive director. If that's your judgment, we're just trying in that language to be able to address what might happen in the marketplace, not make a wholesale change.
Thank you.
Member Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just had a few comments, and so thank you for going through all of the information. One of the things I wanted to talk about is I think in this discussion we combined lots of different issues, and partly we combined the budget issue with a decision for this project to use Spark funding. And I think that my preference would be for us to follow the process that we have set forth to address budget issues, because I don't know if we had made a different decision on Spark, I don't know what percent of those dollars would have gone to the general fund and how that would have impacted the options that we were presented with. And so my preference is always to follow the process that we've set forth so that we can make decisions in a more informed way. So that's one. Two, I really don't, it does make me uncomfortable when we have conversations that in some instances give this facade that we're making decisions, and the decisions that we're making, we're not following law or state statute. And so that is not the case. We are following policies that have been created in Edina, and we're executing it in a way that has been approved in Edina. Whether we approve them as the current council or some other council approve them, that's what we're doing. And so we could choose, and I really liked the slide that Manager Hawkinson put up. There are options. We could have done any of those three options, and we chose the one we did. And there's really, from a legality standpoint, there's nothing wrong with that. That is the policy we chose to implement. Now, I may disagree as a council. I may think that our policy should be different. I may think that I would like to see us decertify TIF districts so those dollars can come back into the general fund in some way to address another particular issue. That's also fine. But my preference is that we make sure we have all the information, and then we can more logically and methodically go through and especially solve the budget issue that we have in front of us. But I just want to be clear, anything that I have voted for, I am following policy that has been established, and each time that I have had a challenge against that, I have felt like staff has heard me. We may not always agree on the way forward, but I felt like there is there's space that's created to have those conversations. And so as a council member, I'm still in the game, right? I'm still trying to figure out, all right, if we can't do this, then how about this? This is what I think the issues are with that. And so I'm still trying to operate that way. And I'm not suggesting that we all aren't. What I'm suggesting is that the opposite. We all are trying to do that, right? We are all trying to figure out how to address issues that are impacting our city and doing it in the way that's possible. That's the best way possible. And when policy issues rear their heads as a challenge to us, we have to lean into that. And so I just wanted to make those comments because I do take exception when anybody is making an assertion that I personally internalize, and so this is me personally internalizing it as though I'm party to making decisions that are not following policy or somehow are underhanded in any way, because we're not doing that and I'm not doing that.
So either Manager Hawkinson or Mr. Neundorf, would you come back up one more time just so we're clear on this, so I'll call it the juxtaposition between closing the Spark district for this particular project, let's say turning 1.6 million back to turning the money back to the county and having a third of it, which would be our share of the tax dollar, coming back to us as 1.6 million versus the analysis that you've gone through to tell us why you think it's smarter and wiser to do the 3.8 million capture with the increased value of the project. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think.
You provided that information. I just want to make sure I understood.
If I understanding this correctly, the the question was raised on whether or not we had a project before us to redevelop a vacant lot that included affordable housing and provided other public benefits. And we looked at the different ways that gap could be filled. And one of the sources that was available, one of the tools that was available to us were these spark funds that had a sunset period on them, and felt like the use of those spark funds in the city, using 100% of those spark funds in the city would in turn leverage additional and greater benefit to the city in the long run. And so that's why the decision was made to use those funds in this manner.
Anything to supplement that, Manager Neuendorf?
So when staff makes our recommendations, we look at the best long-term interest to the city of Edina. And we feel that using Spark is in the best long-term interest of the city. It's also beneficial in the long-term interest of the county and the schools and everybody else. But our focus as your staff is looking at the most benefit to the city, and that supports our recommendation.
All right. Thank you for that. Having had that conversation, is there a motion to approve the redevelopment agreement for 7200 France Avenue Apartments and First Amendment to the 7200, 7250 redevelopment agreement?
So moved.
Second.
Member Agnew moves. Member Pierce seconds the adoption of the redevelopment agreement for 7200 France Avenue Apartments and the First Amendment to the 7200, 7250 redevelopment agreement. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Carried. The matter is approved. And folks in the audience, thanks for your patience. I think Commissioner Edelson, I'm going to ask you to just hit the pause button for an extra 5 minutes or so, because I'd like to bring the mountain biking team up here and let everybody head back to their houses and homework or whatever it is they want to do. We got a great turnout here. We've got a mountain biking cycling club at Edina High School that has just performed phenomenally and won the state. And we've got all of the athletes, or a lot of the athletes here, and I hope all the coaches. There's a good array of folks back in the audience here, and I'm going to have them all come forward and have somebody as your spokesperson talk about winning the state championship, and then we'll go around and introduce everybody. We'll have a photo, because we like to do that with the council in chambers. And so come on up, everybody. Come on up. Let's all do the photo first, and then we'll have a little conversation.
Let's do multiple rows.
Some tall guys back here. Some tall cyclists.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember.
You can see yourself. Come on. No, we can see you. You're good.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
You just might have to tiptoe a little bit. All right, where are you? Raise your hand. I don't see you. Oh, there you are. You need to tiptoe.
I can't hold it for very long. So.
Oh, now I can see you. All
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining.
Bob, don't go too far. Yeah, thank you for welcoming us here tonight. This is actually just a fraction of the team and the coaches that make the team possible. Yeah, fantastic season. The team, we have about 120 kids, about 60 high schoolers, and what should we say, Bob? Phenomenal year. We love riding and racing with these guys. Our season, we have 5 races throughout the year. State championship brings everybody together, and that's where the team really gelled and came together for an incredible race. What else?
Mayor, Council Bob Vos. I am the lead high school coach along with Eric Kinke, who is here, and Emily Hoppy is our middle school coach. Mike is our Hartman is our head coach, and it's quite an effort that he has to put in. We, as Mike said, 120 riders. We have in the room, you see all very committed parents. We have parent rider coaches, and we have dozens and dozens of them, Mayor and Council. We have dozens and dozens of other parents that are behind the team. So it's truly a community involvement. And the reason I jumped up is, Mayor, I had a chance to say it in front of you at the grand opening, but the team, we're a fantastic team. We've won state. We have to say that a little bit of that, and maybe more than a little bit of that, is we want to thank you for the great Braemar Trail system. That is a game changer. That is absolutely a game changer for our team. I will tell you, as an avid mountain bike rider, grown up, it's a game changer, I think, for your community, too. Mountain biking has really taken off, as you all would appreciate, and community loves it. The team really benefits from it, and thank you for recognizing the team. It's a big deal to us, and so we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Gifts for all of you, some little tokens from the city.
Car posters that say, wherever you go, your hometown is proud.
Very energetic and rambunctious group, so this is quiet.
Thanks.
Prove that it's a tough sport. Everyone sat quietly through a discussion about
Yeah.
Mayor, if we could, we'll speak out.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, thanks, Bob. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, everybody. Okay, here we find that. No, and that, thanks for being patient, Commissioner. Our former state legislator, Heather Edelson, now our Hennepin County Commissioner, is here to give us a county update, and
We'll be where? Oh, here? Oh, yeah. Do you want me to do the slides?
I can do it if you want to tell me when to move. Yep.
I don't know. It's
One
like
second, I'll be right there.
I'm flexible. Whatever. I'm pretty laid back. Okay. Well, good to see all of you. Congratulations, Councilmember Jackson and Councilmember Pierce and Mayor. Very excited for you
thank
to be
you.
our mayor again.
And you as well.
Yes. I was just saying, Mayor, that I was telling the team they should go to the Capitol to be recognized as well. So, very good. Well, it's great to see all of you. And Sharon, you as well. Good to see you. Okay, so this is my third city council. I have 16 cities now in this new role, so it's quite interesting. Do you just want me to go ahead, Mayor, and go through the deck?
Yeah, go ahead.
Perfect. Many of you know me. I'm Heather Edelson. I represented our city for 6 years at the legislature, and now am in this new role, which I'm learning. It's been 8 months. Today I was just officially sworn in again. I will acknowledge that it was 2 times, though, in 8 months, which is not fun. I don't recommend that for anyone. And I'm really happy to have my son here tonight, who I asked to take a photo of me. So just make sure you're doing that, Sam, at some point. Got to teach them about government early. Thank you, Julie. That was a good lesson in how to bring about some an issue forward. So okay, so if we go, we're on this one. So District 6, here's a picture of it. There's Edina, actually, which has the largest city in the district. Then it goes Minnetonka. And so our district is quite large. It's 182,000. They're broken up into 7 different districts. And with this, there's 1.3 million people in Hennepin County, largest county in the state of Minnesota. And I'm going to keep going, but I think I said 16 cities. There's 45 cities in Hennepin County. We have the largest budget outside of the state of Minnesota. The biennium budget was $70 billion. This budget here for Hennepin County is $3.1 billion. The levy increase that we looked at this year was 5.5%. Last year, for the operating budget, it was a 6.5% increase. I will note Ramsey County was slightly lower than us at 4.7 on their levy increase this year, but Anoka County, talk about like a stark difference, right, and the needs of a county, was at 16.9 for a levy increase. So just to contrast it, really, when Hennepin County, when we came with a levy increase, we were trying to be really reasonable in what the district needed and how we could keep that also in line and lower so that we're not raising property taxes too much. So next slide. Thank you. Oh, there you are. Okay. So here's the pie. The pie is broken up in 7 different areas. And what you'll notice is Health and Human Services is 42% of our budget at Hennepin County. It's one of the largest areas. It's actually why I decided to run for this seat, because it's a lot of what I worked on at the Capitol. I worked on public safety as well, but I worked a lot on Health and Human Services, making sure that disability advocacy is working, disability waivers, trying to improve that system is incredibly challenging. And I say to a lot of people is no one knows what a county commissioner does, and there's beauty to that. Trust me, coming from the House of Representatives, there is beauty to it. But you don't usually know what the county does until you need the county. I promise you that a parent of a child with a disability knows what the county is because they're using our services. And so the county's there when you need it. And so it's an important thing to look at. So go ahead and go to the next slide. And so there's 7 different lines of business. It's a kind of interesting. I would say the county, coming from state government, feels more like it's run like a business. I'm kind of curious if that's how you guys feel like cities are run. But I realize this is not a back and forth. But we have 7 different lines of business. There's health, income, justice, education, employment, housing, and connectivity. Connectivity, of course, being the transit and pedestrian. So with that, I'm going to keep on going because I'm going to go through all 7 lines of business relatively fast as much as I can. I did Deep Haven and Excelsior city councils. By the way, huge difference. They're smaller city council rooms in local community churches, right? Because the districts are so different. So human services is where I'm going to start. I had mentioned, so access to aging, disability services, disability waivers. Those are really that really fundamental thing when people think of counties is really having access to what that looks like. We do a lot of mental health and substance use. For 1800 Chicago, it's where we have our treatment facilities and mental health facilities. It's where we're building. We made a $15 million investment where we're going to have hopefully operational in the next few months here, a youth facility that's going to focus on mental health and kids that have complex needs. Because right now, as you know, with rising crime, it's not every kid needs to go to the juvenile detention center. They need something else. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that. And we've hired Nexus, who does our youth our youth intervention and crisis response for Hennepin County. So we also do child protection, which is the first time I got involved with government, honestly, was when I was 23 years old and I was a Hennepin County guardian ad litem, and you represent the child's best interest in a court proceeding. A very difficult time, but necessary. As somebody that grew up with very little resources, just because you don't have resources and because you are poor doesn't mean that you need child protective services, right? Families look different. Whether or not people have resources doesn't mean they don't love their children. So, and economic supports is what I'd like to focus on. And the next slide actually is going to talk about this, so you can go ahead and go to that. Economic supports have actually doubled since 2020. You'll see the beginning of the pandemic, we really kind of seen it grow throughout the years. And economic supports in this emergency line is cash benefits, it's food assistance, it's housing support, it's childcare assistance. We are seeing the needs grow, and that presents challenges, and it makes me wonder, as somebody that's into politics, that's our job, right? What's changing in our society, what's changing in our state, what's changing in our county, that need is continuing to grow. So those are areas that we're really asking ourselves as a county, what's happening there. We do have Hennepin County's front door where you can call and access pretty much any service you need, and we will resource you to that. So I would like to just make sure if the council members have that. If you don't have that resources, I can follow up and make sure that you have access to that. If you see any community members that need just something where you don't think as a city you don't have that service, more than likely we as a county do. So with that, next slide is public safety, and the next 3 slides will be on public safety. And so this one, Hennepin County owns actually our jails, and we do supervision of probation. It's interesting, as a state lawmaker, I thought, we've been shifting that a lot to the state. States actually run probation, but it's not actually true, and counties are still doing that. Hennepin County specifically is doing that a lot. Still, and we do not, the radio communication is not true for us in Edina, right? No, this is, and actually, sorry, Scott Neal, you got a request for a meeting today that you don't need to attend on EMS. Yes, hit no on that. The mayor hit no already. So PSAP, we do have our own in Edina, right? We do that all by ourselves. County liaisons is something that we do have, though, and was it last year that we hired a person here in Hennepin County, in Edina? Yeah, that's great. So that's great, making sure that we're having the improving relationships with cultural communities and just the community as a whole. And supporting the growing mental health needs. COPE, we're always making changes. We had our first mayor and city manager meeting, and thank you for that. It was helpful, but I actually don't know if that came up at that meeting. I think it might have been the police chiefs meeting and the fire chiefs meeting, that COPE and the response times, and sometimes people coming up not completely prepared. So we are working with that to make sure that we have our COPE teams ready for that. And those COPE teams are responding to mental health crisis needs. Next slide is Sheriff Tawana Witt. Hopefully you guys have the sheriff come out and speak with you, and you do, thank you. Sheriff Witt is doing a remarkable job, and I'm not going to go through the bullet slides, but those are some of the areas that I really think she's excelling at. But there's so much more, but I would just highlight the community engagement. I had intern for a day at the Capitol, and she's doing intern for a day at the county with me. I'm having my own program, but she's going to meet with them, and I just love that our youth from Edina, Minnetonka, and Hopkins are going to see our first female sheriff just really leading, and I don't know when she sleeps, but she's doing a remarkable job. And next slide is County Attorney Moriarty. Some of the things that she and I had a meeting on recently was the Be at School program, and I'm sure you've heard this listed in the news. Our truancy and youth actually unenrolling after 15 days. The state law in Minnesota is if you're not at school for 15 days consecutively, that you're unenrolled. There's problems with this. What we do know is that when that youth is unenrolled, we know that when we do find them, they're oftentimes committing fighting crimes. And so making sure that we can be preventative is really important. So we're trying to figure out how the county, this shouldn't be just a county attorney initiative, this should also be a county initiative, and how do we better partner with schools. So I've been pushing for that. That's something that I know the legislature has a task force that they're studying, but it looks different in every community. And I think for Hennepin County, we're seeing actually larger numbers, whether it's in Eden Prairie, Edina, or even Minnetonka and Hopkins. So I will go ahead and go to the next slide, try to keep it short. I know you guys have other business. And my son is probably like, why did you make me come? So housing, instability, this is, another area I think the county does a great job at. I will just note that talking, because as cities, this, housing is in an interesting time right now. I was talking to one of the housing developers, Aon, I believe, just a month ago, and they were saying how they're really struggling to build new affordable housing because they're financially not sound. There's costs that they did not predict. And so really what the Repair and Grow program that I will highlight is just trying to stabilize them, so that we can get to a place where we're building housing again. I know people like to, affordable housing can be a trigger word that triggers emotion, but the reality is people need housing in the state of Minnesota. And these are people that are our neighbors. They could be our teachers, the paraprofessionals in our schools, the people that are checking you out at the grocery store. They deserve housing just like anyone else. We are working on eviction and homeless prevention. One area I will say that I'm really proud of that the county is doing is our Shelter All policy, which is actually on the next slide. Thank you, Jennifer. Our Shelter All policy is making sure that if there is a family, and just so you know this, council members and mayor, if you ever see a child and you think that they might not have a place to sleep that night, I do want to send you a number to make sure that we know that in Hennepin County, we do not allow children to sleep outside. If they need a place to sleep, if it is getting them in a hotel room, we will make sure that they have somewhere to go, because that is a moral question and it's the right thing to do. So we've implemented that policy, and there's actually conversations that I've had where I've been stopping people at the side of the road saying, where are you sleeping tonight? And I think that's okay for us to ask. So with that, Hennepin Health. I'm just going to let it go. Hennepin Health, one of the big issues, and I know you had a meeting with legislators this evening, and the legislators, I had my own meeting with them, is for the Hennepin County Medical Center, HCMC, while it is not a direct part of Hennepin County, it is a subsidiary of us. So essentially, we have financial liability for HCMC. Our mental health facilities and center there, the inpatient treatment, and also the center is completely dated and not a place where you can go to feel better and heal. But we also are challenged because in order to update the capital investment that it takes to actually improve these buildings is so expensive. We need the ballpark extension tax, and we have met with lawmakers. It does have bipartisan support, so really hopeful, just like many of us that I'm sure you were asking for things for our city, the county's really hoping that of this legislative session that we can get that ballpark tax extension, because the ballpark has been paid off, and now our county has different needs. We also will be doing the sports grants, will be in that as well. And I do just want to highlight grants at the end too, just to make sure that you go see everybody's applying for them within our city. If you haven't been to the medical examiner's office yet, I'm inviting all city councils to come join me for a tour. So I'll be following up. It's quite interesting. I went and I had no idea that pretty much just like a normal car can deliver people to the medical examiner's office. So it's a really well-run facility, and I'm very proud of the facility. I've already mentioned the mental health facility that we are building, and so we can go on to the next one. On education, we're expanding in our libraries, after school help, homework help, as well as literacy. Many of you know I worked on the READ Act at the Capitol and really trying to take that initiative here over to the county. So we are expanding, I think, into 11 or 12 libraries, literacy help. So that's quite exciting. And we also are doing school-based mental health services, which are helpful, and resident highlights. Libraries are run by Hennepin County. We have 41 of them, Southdale being the new one, which I have the slide on. I know, Councilmember Jackson, you worked really hard on that. I'm so excited about the Art Center being there too, so great work on that. Our service centers at Southdale, actually Southdale is one of the busiest outside of Ridgedale. And elections, we're helping with elections, which, yes, I know, we made the news, and my apologies about that. But we are going to make sure that does not happen again. Assessment services, which are a conversation that we're having right now with cities, and I know that the mayor and city manager Neil are privy to this. And public works, it is something very much we do, and I actually have a whole list of items that we're working on here. I have 5 several Vernon Avenue projects, the Xerxes Avenue project, York Avenue, France. I've been in contact since I've been elected. There's the 7500 York cooperative, and making sure that we have signs over there. I know there was a pedestrian that was, I believe, hit not that long ago, and so trying to make sure that that's safe. Mayor, I know that you and I were at an event not long after that. We have HERC and operate HERC, and so we're looking at how to reduce waste so that we can find a way to close that facility at some point. But I truly would like to see us reduce waste. Closing it without having a plan or just having it go to a landfill doesn't seem like the best option. And the next option, or the next slide, is just the library. And not just, because this is going to be one of the nicest libraries in the state of Minnesota. Literally, I think we should probably win an award for this once it's done. What do you guess? I think so. So yeah, if there is, and you guys know all about it because you've been talking about it. You've been great partners, and I am happy to take any questions.
Questions for the commissioner or comments? Yes, Member Pierce.
Not getting the button today. No question, but you started by saying, I'm paraphrasing, if you use services from the county, yes. Right? And so I just wanted to say thank you. I work for Minnesota Diversified Industries. 70% of our workforce is disabled. And from time to time, we have an individual that needs services or some accommodation, and the county provides that. And so if this one particular time, this person was having a tough time on the floor, I think they were partially blind, and so we had to facilitate a meeting with them to just check in with them. And the county sent someone over to help facilitate that. And so without those kinds of services, we wouldn't be able to provide the service to the community that we do. So I just personally wanted to thank you for that. So that was it.
That's such a great example. I mean, we provide them, yes, we have translators that speak upwards of like 60 languages, and we provide them for all the medical appointments as well, virtually, and those are things where yes, thank you for lifting that up. I mean, in slides, you're like, there's so much we do that it's kind of hard to make a slide deck about it.
You've touched on all these really important areas of work that sometimes people just don't know, what's going on and who's making these services available. And so I think it's great that you're going around to all the cities that you serve, and welcome to your home community. We're so pleased to have you there, and so it gives us an extra boost of confidence knowing that one of our own is at the county as a commissioner, and we know that you do a wonderful job for us. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Good. Thanks for being here this evening.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Good night. All right. Okay, we're on to reports and recommendations. We've got a couple items in that portion of the agenda. First thing is Resolution 2025-09, accepting donations. Is there a motion to approve that resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Member Jackson, second by Member Pierce to approve Resolution 2025-09, which accepts donations on behalf of the City of Edina. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of Resolution 2025-09 say aye. 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 Opposed? Carried. Resolution 2025-09 is adopted. And of course, it's a time of the year when you see some gifting going on. People are so generous around the holiday times. For the police department, quite a few different donations, and all these names will be on the city website. Cargill with a $1,000 donation for the police department, and I'm not going to talk about purposes, but the Edina Crime Prevention Fund, several $1,000s there, I think maybe close to $10,000 or more, I guess, probably close to $20,000 worth of donations for various police-related activities, including the canine work. Park and Rec, Paul and Annette Nelson, a bench donation. I'm sure it's a memorial bench, $3,200. Thank you for that, Nelson's. Stacy Grimes, same thing, a bench donation for $3,200 for a loved one that's passed, I'm sure. And Cynthia Anderson, same thing, $3,200 for a bench donation. And then some donations for the fire department as well. Thurl and Dolores Quigley, a donation for general use, and Dr. Pat and Linda Smith, another donation of the fire department for general use. So thanks to all of those donors on behalf of the city of Edina. And as I mentioned, their names will be posted on the city website. The next matter we have in this portion of the agenda deals with a variance appeal that we heard argued a couple of weeks ago. And are you going to handle this matter? Oh, okay. Well, yeah, it seems like there's something going around. There's other people that are ill as well.
Yes.
So Director Kerry Teague is going to handle this matter on the introduction portion of it. And then we've got the appellants, the homeowners that are available, Scott and Elizabeth Joing and Josh Collar from, yeah, okay, we got the husband and wife are here, our residents, our fellow residents are here for questions that need to be answered, to answer questions that will be asked. And so, as we recall, the Planning Commission recommended denial of variance request.
Yes,
And,
yes.
Director Teague, why don't you walk us through this and we can have a conversation about whether we agree with the Planning Commission or not.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So again, this is an appeal of a decision that the Planning Commission made, which was a denial of an impervious surface coverage variance. The vote was 5-3. The code requires a 50% impervious surface coverage. They're 2.8% over. The unique circumstance is this one, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, is that shared driveway that runs through the site that actually doesn't even serve this property, which is definitely a unique situation compared to other properties. If that driveway weren't there, they would meet the ordinance. They would be at around 41%. Staff has provided resolutions both for approval and denial. You held the public hearing at the last meeting. We haven't received any additional comment. There was just one comment on Better Together that was in support of the project. As mentioned, the homeowners are here to answer any questions, and I'll turn it over to the City Council for decision.
Okay, thank you. Let me first ask if there are any questions for Director Teague or for the homeowners. Otherwise, we can have a conversation up here. I don't know. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Personally, for me, this one feels pretty obvious. If this driveway that was not even in use by this property did not exist, they would be in compliance. And so honestly, I think it's a pretty easy decision for me. I'm supporting this variance tonight. And really don't have much more to say. I think it's pretty clear cut to me.
Okay, Commissioner Agnew, would you care to move the matter? And we'll see if we get a second, and then we'll have another further conversation.
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we get, okay.
You had 2 seconds.
Commissioner Jackson, second. We'll give.
No, I think there was
You think
Commissioner
that's,
Risser.
Commissioner?
Member Risser.
Member Risser.
Yeah.
All right, Member Risser, thank you. I'm already lapsed into the HRA, sorry, calling everybody Commissioner. So we've got a motion and a second to actually adopt Resolution 2024-120, which would approve an impervious surface variance for a new patio and other improvements at 5605 McGuire Road. Is that correct? Maker of the motion, Commissioner or Member Agnew?
Yep. Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Yep, and same with you, the seconder. All right. Comments from council members. Member Risser.
I too think it's obvious, and I am somebody who really hates the word unique and really doesn't like to see it being used, but I do think it applies in this situation. You're not maintaining the driveway, you're not using the driveway, and so to me, I concur with Member Agnew. It's a no-brainer.
Councilmember Jackson?
I was moved by, I agree with my peers. I was moved by the fact that it seems to be disproportionately on the appellant's land, and that's just not fair. So we want to land on the side of fairness.
Councilmember Pierce?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I do want to acknowledge the Planning Commission. Like their role primarily, like they look at land use issues, and they're trying to take existing policies, ordinances, and make decisions within that framework. And so I do think that that's what they're supposed to do. And then it comes to us, and we get to balance that plus reasonableness and all these other factors. And so I do just want to acknowledge, I feel like that is the process, and I feel like the process worked in this case. I do support the approval for the various reasons that my colleagues have already stated.
I want to thank staff for that comprehensive presentation we had a couple weeks ago. It was really helpful, and then understanding these unique circumstances with the shared driveway, and my colleagues have spoken well on it. The fact that they're 2.8% over on the coverage rule and would be under significantly but for that shared driveway situation. So, and I appreciate Councilmember Pierce acknowledging the work and the type of work and the advisory work we get from the Planning Commission and their recommendations on what they think we should be doing. And of course, we're not bound by those decisions, but we're influenced by them. Nonetheless, I think we've got unanimity up here of opinion, and so we might as well have a vote. I think we all feel the same way that the approving of an impervious surface variance for a new patio and other improvements at 5605 McGuire Road is important under the circumstances. So we've got a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2024-120, which does just that, approves that impervious surface variance for a new patio and other improvements at 5605 McGuire Road. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of adoption of Resolution 2024-120 as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. The request for a variance is approved. Thank you, folks, for being here a couple weeks ago. Thanks for being here tonight. And we're going to get you home at a decent hour. And us as well. We'll be shortly behind you, I think. So, yeah, thanks. All right. That completes the work in that portion of the agenda. The next matter is the appointment of an acting mayor. We did this 4 years ago, and Member Jackson took on the responsibility of backing up the chair at the HRA, and Member Pierce became the acting mayor. And my understanding is that there's been discussion here, and that Member Pierce, you would be amenable to continuing in that role?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And then we're going to deal with Member Jackson and the HRA at the HRA meeting. I imagine that's upcoming. Okay. All right. So is there a motion to appoint Councilmember Pierce as the acting mayor for 2025?
So moved. Second.
Got a motion by Member Agnew, second by Member Jackson to appoint Councilmember Pierce as the acting mayor for 2025. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adoption of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Councilmember Pierce is now approved as the acting mayor for 2025. And we are on to manager comments and your thoughts relative to your goals as one part of those observations, I think, or comments that you want to make.
Thank you, Your Honor. I thought it just was appropriate this time of year, and we do typically do this, and so I just wanted to make sure that we did it thoughtfully and not as an afterthought. So that's why I asked if we could add it to the agenda for tonight. The things that I'm looking forward to in 2025 are a little bit of separate and distinct from my goals that are in my performance my performance plan for the year. But I think we're looking forward to the private redevelopments that we're going to see on France Avenue we've spent a fair amount of time in 2024 kind of setting the table for that. We think that we're going to see them happen in 2025. We have some large public projects that we've been working on also at Fred Richards Park and Fire Station number 2. We hope to see some completion come to the discussions around the library art center combination in 2025. THC use and cannabis management is going to be something that we're all new at in 2025. Not just in Edina, but everywhere around us as well. So that's going to be an interesting challenge for us. But perhaps more than anything else, 2025 is a budget planning year for 2026 and 2027. The council gave us a fairly clear signal, I think, when you approved the budget for 2025, that you were interested in contracting the rate of growth, I'll say. It's not contracting spending, but contracting the rate of growth that we have had for the past few years. And to do that, we're going to have to engage in some discussions with you around service levels and methodology of how we provide services, things like that. We're going to have to say no more than we have in the past, and that's not easy for staff or elected officials to do in this setting. But we are interested in taking that challenge on with the council together, staff and council together, and working through a number of opportunities to share with you kind of the behind-the-scenes workings of our budget process and engage you more in a partnership of setting those services for the future. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Neal. Councilmember Agnew, 2025.
You're throwing it right to me first, huh?
Yeah, if you're busy doing something,
No.
we can come back to go to Member Pierce.
I'm ready. I have mine, but I wanted maybe an example from someone else. But that's fine. I'll read on my list. So some of the things that I am most looking forward to in 2025 as a part of city council work, I think first and foremost is continuing to explore the France Avenue underpass project, looking at the feasibility, looking at what does the community want, seeing if there is something that meets the needs. And I think also continuing to track progress on things that have already been priorities, right? Affordable, attainable housing within our community, progress towards our climate action plan, seeing how we're doing on all of those activities, and then also some of the other projects that we haven't received as many updates on, but specifically the Cahill District Plan. So making sure that we're continuing to explore what can we do within that area. Those are like the very tactical and meaty things. And then I think that this has been a theme as we're talking with city manager, as we talk up here on the dais as well, but continuing to think about the ways that we build trust and build relationships with people across the community, and just continuing to have that be a core tenet and core thought of mine as I progress through the year. So,
yeah,
thanks
for that. Yeah, building community trust or civic trust. Another way to put it. Yeah. Thank you for those comments.
Nicely done.
Councilmember Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So from a process standpoint, what we talked about doing last year is, Manager Neal, you are going to send us your goals, and then we're supposed to add things to that or respond to it, and then you'll combine all of that. Now, I can't remember last year, but it feels like we finished that in like June of last year. Maybe it wasn't that late, but it was later than it should have been. Yeah. And we all admitted we should get it done sooner.
It'll be February this year.
Yeah. So if we can get it done next month to be able to present that, that'd be great. So that was one comment I wanted to make. And then the three things I had, we've already talked about, broader housing affordability, but not just how do we achieve those goals, but Member Jackson and I had talked about having more community engagement around topics like that. And so I would like to see how we can accomplish that as well from more of an awareness perspective. Budget, we talked about. And I like the way that you framed it, Manager Neal. I think that we've got a meeting coming up to kind of talk through some of that approach. But one of the things we talked about is how can we get members of the community involved in that process, to what extent we can do that. And so budget would be the second one. And then third, which is more overarching for me, is community engagement. But I think it ties into what Member Agnew said. So finding a very systemic way that we can increase community engagement to help build trust, build on trust within the community. So those would be the three things that I would have.
Thanks for that. Those thoughts for 2025. And Member Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I actually had a very long list of things I wanted to say. I think I will cut it back and keep in line with my fellow members. But I'm going to start with where I was going to end, and that is Member Pierce often talks about we need to be able to tell the story better. And so I have actually 3 pages of notes on how to tell the story, because I thought this is a complex job. And I thought Commissioner Edelson talking about the county is really an enterprise, the city is really an enterprise. And as we're going to this budget process, we want to talk about who we are and what we do. And the framework that came to my mind comes from the Declaration of Independence, actually. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then in the Fifth Amendment, it's translated to life, liberty, and property. And I think that really lays out a good framework for who we are and what we do. Life being public safety, whether it's fire, police, snow plowing, and street repair, or public health. Liberty, and that's good, clean government. And we have a very clean government. We do not have meetings behind closed doors. We can't, 3 of us, get together and talk about something as much as or 5 of us, without public notice and, with the public invited and notified. And that includes voting and public finance and communications. And then finally, the pursuit of happiness and property, and that's land use and housing and economic development. And so as I was going through all of this, I want to make the point that I believe it's been a tacit policy for economic development to use land use innovatively. And it stems from Edinburgh and from Centennial Lakes, those wonderful mixed-use developments that were created in the 1980s and early 90s, and this kind of set the tone for what we're trying to do now. And so some companies go out and try and get tech. Some try to get medical devices coming to their community. We have an existing healthcare and retail industries, and we're using land use to innovate and bring in new businesses and new people, and it's a cycle of improvement. And I think that's really actually very innovative, and it's unique to Edina, and I'm proud of it. So I just wanted to make that comment. One thing I'd like to do is I'd like to have a town hall meeting where we can have some back and forth with the public. This is a very difficult forum for these kind of conversations that people are asking us to have, but it's always a one-way conversation. Either they're talking to us or we're talking to them. And I'd like to sort of pair that with an annual meeting with our commissioners, so the commissioners can all meet each other. The chairs maybe give a 5-minute or less update on what they're doing so the public can hear that, and then have a back and forth type of format for a conversation with the public. I do want to see the underpass ideas come forward. That has the potential to be so cool. It also has the potential to not be cool. So I want to continue to look at that and see how that can go forward. And yeah, the budget. We're going to have to talk about our service levels and how we can, I thought, like that, Manager Neal, decrease the rate of increase because it's not sustainable what we're doing now. So it's going to be a great year, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you for that. Great comments from everybody. Member Risser.
Thank you. And I do, as with my fellow council members, have a laundry list, but just to focus on one real specific, which illustrates kind of, one of the things that we have to balance is we're just one person. We're up here, we're representing the residents of Edina, and we are all at large, so we're representing all of them. And sometimes we get a bee in our bonnet and we wish we could just make something happen. And I'm going to be very transparent here. The thing I would love to see is for the next road reconstruction, the information that goes out very specifically says you can have sod or you can have clover. And so people can actually make an informed decision, and they don't have to proactively, find out, oh, is there something I can do? And I know I've mentioned this before, and the response has been not that that's going to happen, and it didn't happen in my neighborhood in an informed way. People had to know about it in order for it to happen. And I think this would really help us with our Green Steps Cities goals, or our climate action plan, in terms of saving water, creating bee-friendly habitat, cutting down on the use of pesticides, and all of that. So that's a very nitty-gritty kind of specific. And I kind of want to do the range here. I'm also very concerned about trust and transparency, and what I'd like to do is try to fold that into dialogue about the budget, and we have been hearing from residents. We have been getting that feedback. And I need to go through those emails. And, one thing that somebody brought up was, maybe we need to think about getting rid of the liquor store business, which is an interesting thought, particularly if there's going to be tariffs and all of that. So being open and really listening to what people are thinking and hearing those ideas and letting them gel. And I'm somebody who has to process things. I have to have time to kind of consider it and weigh it and go back and forth. So that's something that is really on my mind. The other thing is the Historical Society, because I think that will come up, and what are we going to do? How much are we going to support that? How are we going to get that to a asset for the city that is really very vibrant and can be contributing, and not something that we need to provide ongoing six-figure investment in? So those are the things. But finally, I do want to say that I know all of us are up here bringing our best, trying to be the stewards that we can be. And I will articulate opinions like I did today that people may not share. That doesn't mean I am judging you. That doesn't mean I am saying that something fishy is going on. But I am saying I feel we need a more robust dialogue. So I wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments too. For me, when you think about the responsibilities to our fellow residents, always public safety comes to the forefront for me in terms of our responsibilities. So I think we're doing a wonderful job in that area. We've got very effective leader in our police department and a wonderful corps of officers that really care about our town, and our town cares deeply about them. And so that's one thing I would expect in 2025, that we would continue to make sure that people and property are safe in our community. Another, I think we've all touched on this fiscal. If we want to maintain our fiscal excellence that we've had so many years, there's some real responsibility that goes along with that in terms of trying to make sure that, I think as we go into this year, and everybody's talked about it, including Manager Neal, that we create a methodology for budgeting that allows us to be mindful of the capacity of people and mindful of predictability in a way. Whether you're a family or you're a business in Edina, that element of predictability is important from year over year, and maybe we can look at whether we can accomplish that this year as we work on some of those budget issues. And then I think folks have touched on this too, and it's kind of a hallmark for Edina, is this sort of deliberate and thoughtful redevelopment, land use. The land use has been an important element of Edina from its founding, and I think we need to continue to think about how we're going to do that in a thoughtful and deliberate way, which I have no doubt we will. And then I think from a more, it's not a soft issue, but it's this notion that we're doing this work collectively for the benefit of our fellow residents in our town, to constantly work on improving the quality of people's lives. And I thought Member Agnew said it well when she talked about building this trust, building off of that we continue to work on that sort of relentlessly. But this notion that we think about in the back of our minds all the time, are we doing things that help improve the quality of people's lives in our town? And I think those are the things that I'm thinking that we need to address. So, when Mr. Zickert was here tonight, he was here last week too, or 2 weeks ago, and tonight he came to talk about something that we just touched briefly on at the end of the meeting last time, and that was community comment. And over the years that I've been involved in city council work, I've always encouraged the sort of public broadcasting of that community comment because I thought it was important for the community to hear the comments that were made or the questions that were raised. But what I've noticed is that, particularly during the election cycle, it became political. And I encouraged Mr. Zickert to stay. He didn't stay. But I can specifically recall at least 2 instances, maybe 3, where he said at the end of his remarks during the election cycle, don't forget to keep this information in mind when you go to vote. That's not the purpose of public comment, is to use it as a platform for political purposes. Now, he had an artful sort of argument tonight about him talking to me as an ex-mayor, but I get this distinct recollection of sitting here and listening to him come up during the election cycle and talking particularly about TIF, and then telling residents, don't forget this when you go to vote. And that's caused me to wonder too about whether the Eden Prairie model has some merit to it, which for years I kind of rejected. But if this is going to turn into a political platform, it's not meant to be that. And so it's meant to be, and Jennifer, you may have, or Manager Neal, do we have somewhere that it says, what's the purpose of community comment? Is there something that's ascribed somewhere in our policies or in code to our attorney? I just don't know. But here you've got it in mind, apparently. And it's caused me to think about whether or not it's worth running a pilot for a short period of time, maybe a few months, to do this off camera. Still have people come and express their concerns to the council.
It's on the agenda every.
And maybe, every city chooses to do it different ways. I just know Eden Prairie's done it that way for years. They have it from 6:30 to 7. Off camera are people coming to express their opinions in a variety of different ways. Yeah, so it does include comment, not just raising a question or asking a question, which is fine. I think that's important. I just don't want it to be, and maybe, I don't know how we regulate the political part of it. So let me turn now to Member Jackson.
So that would be regulating the content. We can do, under the First Amendment, you can regulate time, place, and manner. So for instance, sometimes people brought in props. We could say no props. We can say limit to 3 minutes, but we can't regulate anyway what they say. That would be content regulation.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that. Member Risser, I don't have any preconceived notion on this, but having been through this experience for the first time in all these years during the election cycle did make me wonder about what was the right pathway here. Member Risser?
I think about the range of public comment that we have heard, and sometimes people do come forward. I'm trying to remember the gentleman who was announcing it was a while ago, but a sporting event that was also a fundraiser. And I think there is merit to having this opportunity for people to come forward and to comment on things. And I think it does have value, and I do learn from the community comment. So I think it definitely makes it easier for me to understand some of the things that residents are going through. And I think about, all of those comments that we heard. I think it was during community comment that had to do with the tree ordinance. Maybe it wasn't. But I think it was. There were a couple times where there was a single issue that really brought together a lot of people, and it made it very clear that there was something that we needed to turn our attention to. So I see this as something that has value and is important to me as a council person. But, and so that's where I stand. I also had to go to federal district court in senior high school to defend the First Amendment and not get suspended. So I have a little bit of history there, but that's my view.
Member Agnew.
Thank you. For this topic in particular, I wouldn't mind us talking about it more. I don't exactly know how I feel about it, but I think just in kind of direct reaction to what you were saying, Member Risser, I don't think we're challenging should we have community comment, right? So we as council members would still be hearing from anyone in the community about any topic that they want to. And so I just want to say that that isn't, I think, under question right now. Correct, and thank you for saying that. And I should have said I do think it has merit so that other people throughout the community can hear the comment. But very good point, because I was just talking about us, but I do think it has value for the community as a whole.
Yeah, and I would just tag along to what Member Agnew said. You could probably tell from the way I handle this issue tonight is that I don't have any really strong feelings about it or charged feelings about it. I'm just kind of puzzled for the first time in many years as to whether there's a need for a change or discussion about a pilot, or maybe nothing at all. Maybe we just continue as is, and we tell people it's not. Well, I guess it goes to time, place, manner. Member Jackson.
So that was why I raised it at our last meeting, so that we'd have time to have feedback. And honestly, I didn't get a single email on this from anybody. There's some chatter on social media, but I think it didn't raise the hackles that I thought it would. And so that's why I raised it, so we could get some feedback. But obviously, Mr. Zickert was very upset by it. But my concern, we're public figures and we put ourselves out there for this. But sometimes these comments go to our staff, and they're not public figures, and they get called out sometimes by name in an unkind manner. And I would just prefer to have those conversations not broadcast for their sake. So that's where I'm at.
Thanks. Member Pierce.
I agree with my colleagues. We for sure will have the forum. I'm not sure what we would pilot, because it feels like the only issue is it broadcasted or not.
That's the issue.
Right, and so but the content would remain the same. And so I think what we may be reacting to is a little bit of decorum. And I think it just happens to be that it's rare for anybody to come in and say, hey, thanks, great job at doing whatever. It's typically people are coming in that have an issue that want to raise a concern, and this is the form that they do it in. So I don't know the value of piloting, not doing the broadcast, but we certainly could have a conversation around it, and if we want to have a proposal to do something different, we've done that in the past. So
Member Agnew's point, I too think it's probably I raise it tonight again just for further discussion. And maybe we can handle it at a workshop sometime this year and talk about it and have a little bit more substantive sort of conversation, understanding what other cities do. You know, how do they handle community comment? So, yeah, Manager Neal.
And just thinking about our own city, I remember when I came here in 2010, at that time, we still did community comment at the end of the meeting, not at the beginning. So if you wanted to come and have that opportunity, you had to sit through the entire meeting, which some of those meetings are very long.
Make it more accommodating.
The other opportunity that's available for folks who want to broadcast, so even if you chose not to broadcast community comments in the future, everybody has access to Channel 15, our cable public access channel, and you could have 3 hours to do your presentation there, and there's no cost to do that. In fact, we provide some equipment, editing and camera equipment that could be used to help people do it. So that's part of what we could explore as well.
Okay, so just an issue for further discussion. That's all I had from a supplemental standpoint over and above what we were all thinking about for 2025. So anybody have anything else now? Has that prompted anything for further comment from council members? Okay. Is there a motion do we have anything else? No. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Member Agnew moves, Member Jackson seconds. A motion to adjourn the first city council meeting of the Edina City Council in 2025. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The city council meeting on January 7, 2025 stands adjourned. Thanks, everybody.